Hi guys, and welcome to this episode of the Happy Knitting Podcast. My name is Julia and I'm coming to you from the UK, and today is Valentine's Day. It's the 14th of February 2025. So happy Valentine's Day if you are celebrating. We don't really do Valentine's Day, but I know loads of people that do, so here we go. If you're watching for the first time, then welcome. This is just going to be a little space where I talk about my knitting and crochet and crafty projects, mostly knitting though. If you have any questions, just pop them in the comments below. I don't really take great Ravelry page notes anymore, except for bigger projects. So for example, my West Knit shawl is going to be on Ravelry if you have questions about the colors that I used and all of that, but otherwise just post a question below and I will try to answer them. So let's talk about a finished object, because I finally finished my brioche scarf. This is quite a large one. In the end I looked up, let's backtrack. I saw a very similar scarf in this exact yarn in a yarn store in Germany. The original was a half fisherman's rib scarf by Rico, who is the maker of the yarn that I used. This is their Rico Mélange DK in the colorway 17, and yes, one colorway makes all these crazy color changes, so I just did a simple brioche scarf rather than a half fisherman's rib. And I looked at the original scarf pattern because I wanted to know how long they made it, and they made their scarf 2 meters long, but I didn't like the length. I didn't think it was long enough because I really wanted this to be a sort of, even when you wrap it, I want it to be long. So I made mine about 2 meters 20, maybe 2 meters 15. I made it a little bit longer, and the lady at the store told me to buy 5 balls of yarn, and I used exactly 4.5. So I had 25 grams left, which means unfortunately I can't make a matching hat. But I finished this. I haven't blocked it. I think if I went to block it, this would get much bigger even. But I don't even know where I can block something so long. And also I just wanted to wear it. So you can see it is quite wide. I think I started with 61 stitches. And if I went to block this would become even bigger and wider, which I think eventually I will block it, but I haven't gotten around to it yet. Instead, I just wore it in the rain, which is why it is a little bit crinkled, but I love it. So this is done, and I'm very happy to have it done. I really, really enjoy the process. I think I started this on New Year's Eve when I was feeling quite unwell. So it's nice to get this done. It was a really nice project to knit on, but after 2 meters and 20, I'm also sort of done with it. So yeah, finished object. For this week is my scarf, which I will wear again later today. I also do have some works in progress. I have worked a fair bit on my West Knit shawl, which I'll show you in a second. Otherwise, I just have been working a little bit on things here and there. But next week is half term, so my son will be home from school and then my sister will be over. Realistically, a podcast probably won't happen, so I thought I'd check in today and give you a bit of an update anyways. So in my travel bag, I have my mussel bra hat. This is, of course, a pattern by Isolde Teague. Modifications that I tend to make for all of my mussel bras is I don't do any fancy loop, closing loop, whatever cast-ons. I just cast on, and then I graft it shut, and it looks just as nice as if you did a fancy cast-on, and it is much simpler. I also have started to do knit front backs for the increases, and again, it doesn't make a huge difference. It's gonna give you a similar hat. And yeah, I've just memorized what I do by now, so this is very, very mindless. And as you can see, I've made some progress. It is very, very bright. It's a bit more of a neon greeny yellow, which my camera doesn't like at all. But believe me, it's essentially like a high-vis vest. And this is the yarn that I'm using, which is also blowing out. This is Socks Yeah by Coop Knits in their Helium colorway, and I have 2 50-gram balls of this. This is really like deep stash. And this is the mohair I bought to basically use up this deep stash. This is Filcolana Tilia in, I believe, the color Lemongrass. And yeah, I'm very excited. And yes, this hat will be for me. It is very bright, but who doesn't love a bright hat? I would love to have a bright hat in every kind of color to just match with my very boring gray and beige coats. So yeah, that is my Musselburgh hat, and I am knitting this on 3.5mm needles in case anyone's interested. I tend to do sock weight Musselburghs on a 3mm needle, and because I'm holding this one with mohair, I went up to a 3.5, which I think is working out quite well. Next up, I have a new cast on. I mentioned last week that I was going to knit a Musselburgh, no, not a Musselburgh hat. I was going to knit a Sunday sweater by Petite Knit, along with my sister. I have made 3 of them so far. I actually have one here to show you. This is my grey one. I have, ridiculously, I have a white creamy one, which is my favorite, and I can't find it. I have a beige one, which was great, and I lost it at an airport a few years ago. And then this is my least favorite, and this is the one I wear all the time. I mean, I still like it. I just don't like it as much as the other ones, but this one has survived. So this is the Sunday sweater by Petite Knit. And for this one, I used a mohair, don't ask me which one, and a lace weight superwash yarn. So this one is quite drapey. Whereas the other ones I've made, they were made with a non-superwash together with a mohair, which gives you a bit more of a like structured garment, which I prefer, but it's just, you know, preference. So for my 4th one, which I'm knitting with my sister, basically to encourage her to make one, and because we thought it would be fun to knit it together, I again using Deep Stash. This is a cone of Holst Garn Super Soft in the colorway Space, which I really like. It's everything I show you when it's teal, it comes across as blue. Trust me when I say they are more teal and less blue than you think. There's a very, very bright turquoisey shade of teal. Is that even a word? I'm not sure. So I'm using this Deep Stash cone, and I have ordered some more Filcolana Tilia in the colorway 289 to use up my stash and to make this sweater. And I have started. I did start it over the weekend, last weekend, just because I wanted it to be on the needles. But as you can tell, I have not done very much, and I think I am going to do the folded over collar, which I didn't do for my grey one that I just showed you, but it is sort of missing that. I do miss the collar, especially because it tightens it up, and it with my grey one, it sort of stretches out a bit. So I do think I need to do the folded over collar. I just haven't done very much. I've just started. And for all of my, is this true? Yes. For all of my Sunday sweaters, I use 3.5mm for the cuff and the ribbing, and then I'll change to 3.75, I believe. Essentially, I'm just doing what I've done for my other 3 ones, which is, I think my gauge is a little bit looser. So what I do is I use the needles that I just mentioned, and I will skip the last increase round, which gives me a good comfortable fit with the yarn that I have, which is a sort of mohair and very fine fingering weight combination. And I always use the mohair edition pattern of the Sunday sweater. I think there are a couple of different ones. I use the one for the 21 stitch gauge, but then I modify because I just make life complicated. I'm sorry. This is not good podcasting, but by now I just know what works for me. So then I just do that rather than follow a pattern to a T. So yeah, that is the beginning of my Sunday sweater number 4. And my voice is going, so let's have some coffee. I'm still on decaf, can you believe? I've not had any real coffee for 5 months. Anyways, let's talk about some socks. I have been working a little bit on my Katya socks. So I mentioned this yarn that I found the other day and I got very, very obsessed with. And I think I showed you a couple of colorways that I got just because they were on sale, and I think it's a really clever concept. This yarn is from Katya, so a good old sort of German sock yarn. I think they're made in Italy, but I think it is a German brand. Maybe I'm getting it wrong. It's a brand that is all over Germany, but I did find it here in the UK. And this is Katja Concept, which has, and it's called Symmetric Socks and More Blossom. So I think Blossom is the line, and the Blossom line is the one that has speckles all over the sock that sort of change color, and then you get a very stripy cuff, which I think is very fun. And these yarns come in 40 grams. No, they come in 80 grams, 40 grams per socks, which I think is actually very clever because you never really need 100 grams, so you just end up with leftovers. And with an 80-gram ball of sock yarn, I can still easily make even a men's pairs of sock. So yeah, that is my sock progress on this. This is still the first sock. And this is Blossom in colorway 65. Apologies for the break. My sister is currently swatching for her Sunday sweater and needed some advice. And also this gave me a chance to have a drink, and hopefully my voice will now comply again. We'll see about that. Anyways, let's talk about the big project that I am working on, which is this. This is, of course, my Stephen West Glow Along. I always want to say Glow Hair Along, but it's just Glow Along. Which is also called the Awesomer Gossamer Shawl. And this is where we are. It is huge. So this is, let's show you the right side. This is the beginning of the shawl. And as you can see, I've made quite a bit of progress on it, and it's looking really big actually. What I've done is I've done as per pattern the first garter stitch section. And then you go into these small bubbles, and then you make the medium bubbles, and then what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to do the large bubbles, but I decided not to do them. If you've looked at the original shawl, it is absolutely massive, and I like it, but I also don't want to be making a blanket that I don't actually find very wearable. And even with just the medium bubbles, this is so big, it is ridiculous. Of course it is big, it's a West knit shawl, but even on that scale I think it is quite a large one. So I think I mentioned earlier that I was thinking about skipping the large bubbles, and that is exactly what I did. I did briefly question it when I was looking at the pattern, trying to work out how to do it, but in the end it actually wasn't that difficult. So you can see I have started down here, and the bubbles go into this sort of chevron-y border, which I think is going to block out really, really nicely. So essentially what I've done, without giving away anything in the pattern, is I looked at the increase row for the large bubbles and at the one for the chevron for the border, which is very similar, and just played with the numbers, because if you don't do this large bubbles, I think you're missing something like 2 stitches per chevron. And then you can just basically work it backwards. It wasn't that complicated because it all, like I said, it all lines up. And the only effect that my change is making is that my chevrons will be a little bit smaller, but it doesn't really matter. So that's what I've done. And I am now working on the border. And what you're supposed to do, I think, is cycle through all of the colors once. And I think what I will do, depending on how I feel about it and how the size is, and if I'm sick of it by then, I could always do the border twice. I don't think that would, shape-wise, make a massive difference. I think that would be fine, actually. So I could always make the border longer if I feel like it, or I might just bind off and be done with it. I think I might at some point put this on a stitch holder cable thingy and check, but it looks like it will be big enough. What do you think? And I really, really love this shawl. I'm really, really enjoying the colors. This is done with 2 strands of mohair of different colors mulled together. Other modifications that I'm making is I am doing knit front backs again for the increases, because these rows are really, really, really long now. I haven't even counted my stitches because obviously I've modified, so they are not, the stitch numbers are not in the pattern for me. But it would be around 500 plus stitches. So if making knit front backs makes these rows go a little bit quicker, I will do that and no one will be able to tell the difference. So yeah, that is my awesome gossamer shawl, and I love it. And I'm also honestly quite surprised with how quickly this has gone. I mean, it is a fair bit of knitting, but considering I didn't 100% focus on this and always sort of knit on smaller accessories at the same time, I feel like it's gone relatively quickly. And maybe I'm jinxing it now because the rows are going to be very long. But yeah, I'm very happy with it. And I originally planned it so that I would finish on the sort of this very dark stripe, which is a dark gray marbled with the magenta. But what I'm thinking now is I might add either a stripe or an I-cord bind off in this pink color, because I think that would finish it off really, really nicely. So I think that's what I'll do, but I will keep you posted. And the sun is coming out, so the light is changing, but yeah, it's a very pretty shawl. I very, very much like it. I sized down in terms of needle size for this as well. I am using a 3.5mm needle. And as you can see, it still turned out very, very big. So that's no problem, clearly. And the yarn that I'm using, interestingly enough, I'm still into the first ball of all of my mohair, but I'm about to run out. So I will have to go into second balls because this is how much I have left of this one color, and I still have to do one more row at least. But yeah, I should have a fair amount of mohair left over. So these are I have 2 balls per color as Stephen suggests. And the mohair that I am using is a Mayflower mohair, Mayflower Kid Silk, which I quite like. I think it's a fun yarn to work with. It's a really nice mohair. It's definitely more budget friendly than some of the other mohairs that are out there, but the quality is very nice. I honestly can't say anything bad about it, except that the grays, I'm not sure if it's coming across, but they can be a bit sort of blue gray. And that seems to be the case for all of the grays, which I think is a bit interesting. But as long as you don't mind or you know about it, I don't think it's a big problem. So I could definitely see myself ordering this mohair again for sweater projects. The only thing is that I had to order this from Denmark, I think, from Rito Hobby. So it's really not really worth doing that for a small amount of yarn. But if I'm planning future sweaters where I need to match the mohair to something that I have in stash, which I think is what I'm going to be doing for a fair bit of destashing this year, I could see myself ordering this again and paying for the shipping. So yeah, that is my Stephen West. And look at the back, isn't it also just so pretty? I love it actually. I think it's really pretty both ways around. So yeah, that is my Stephen West Glow Along. And basically that is all of my knitting that I've done this week. Sorry, the light is just coming and going. It's a very strange day. I did do a bit of crochet because, as you will know, I finished my Magnus throw, so I was really, really keen to start a new blanket, and I still might, but for now what I've done instead is I was sensible and worked a bit on a blanket that I've already started, and I actually really like this one as well. So you may or may not remember this. Let's just secure this stitch because I've already unraveled enough today. This blanket is a V-stitch blanket using Stylecraft DK. What's it called? Stylecraft Special Double Knit. And I got this yarn a while ago as part of a kit for the Attic 24 Star Bride blanket, which she brought that out, I think, October 2023. And I fell in love with it, and I really wanted it, and I couldn't justify it, so I didn't buy it for a long time. But it always sort of stayed on my mind, and then at some point someone was destashing a kit for quite a bit less money on Ravelry, so I bought the kit, and I've been wanting to make a color wash blanket with this for a long time. I always knew I was going to make a V-stitch version. I think the original blanket has squares, which are also very pretty, but that's not what I wanted to do. The only question that I really had was I going to color wash sort of like big chunks, like all the blues, then all the reds and so on throughout the whole blanket, or would I do stripes? And as you can see, I went for the stripes, so I just placed the, I think I made up my own order. I didn't quite like the one that Attic 24 suggested, Lucy. And yeah, I'm just doing 2 row stripes of V-stitch, and isn't it so pretty? I love V-stitch, and I started this last year and then just sort of got sidetracked with other things. But I picked it up again. I was on the green, so I've done a couple of stripes, and I'm hoping I can keep going on this because this color combination makes me so happy. So yeah, I have done a bit of work on this. I am using a 4mm hook. What I really would like to do is make another ripple blanket. I actually have one, a ripple blanket by Attic24 as well. I have one in sock yarn, and it's really, really pretty, but it's also just a 4-ply. And it is so slow. So I haven't decided yet, but I think my next blanket may well be a neat ripple, but either with a sock yarn held double, or I don't know, something like this, like an actual sort of acrylic blanket yarn that I have in stash. I have a fair bit of yarn in stash. I'm definitely not buying new yarn, I can tell you that, for a blanket, unless it's like something to hold with what I already have. But yeah, usually I think I would just use my minis, hold them double, but the fact that I already have quite a large blanket makes me feel like I should just keep working on that. I don't know. So for now I'm working on this and we will decide, but I did think I would show it to you, and isn't it just so pretty? I love it. I love the feel of the V-stitch as well. It's just, it's so bouncy, and I really, really like it. So yeah, that is my crafting for this week. I did briefly work on my stitch journal as well, but I'll just show that when I've made more progress. And yeah, I think that is basically it for this week. For non-knitting news, we did get our drain pipe leak fixed, which was lovely, and actually we found a good builder who was then able to fix a couple of other things in our house as well, so that's great. If you've been around for a while, you'll know that we bought a house 2 years ago, pretty much exactly 2 years ago, in fact. And it's a house from the 1930s, and while everything on the outside looks really great, we've had a few issues with it. It just keeps throwing us curveballs, which I think that's what happens if you have a house, especially an old house. That's what people say. But yeah, we've just been able to actually work out some small kinks, which is great. We even got some like electrical issues fixed, which now means I have a light in my little washing machine dryer cupboard, which is great. I can actually see what I'm doing now. And yeah, like I said, our kitchen now smells nice again, which is great, because the leak wasn't really a problem in terms of, like, there wasn't a big leak. It didn't really matter. It didn't really go anywhere, but the smell was just really bad. So I'm really glad we fixed that. And in the process, of course, they uncovered all this stuff that wasn't done properly. So it's now done, which is great. And yeah, otherwise, it's just every week at the moment. This entire year has just been really stressful. I'm just waiting for it to slow down. I'm not sure if it ever will, but I'm keeping my fingers crossed. And like I said, it's half term next week, so my son will be home from school, but we still have to work, so we'll work around that and have my sister to help, and it'll be interesting. So yeah, basically that is what's been happening. A lot of life admin and some knitting to keep me busy and distracted. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. I do hope wherever you are in the world that you are healthy and that you are safe and that you have some yarn to play with. I always love hearing what you're working on in the comments, so please do share what you'd like to make, what you're planning to make, what you're maybe making at the moment. It always just inspires me to cast on more things, which is really the last thing I need, is to cast on more things, but I think all of us love new projects, right? So do let me know. And I will be back with you probably in 2 weeks' time, maybe earlier if the opportunity arises. Who knows? Who really has any clue what's going to happen? I clearly don't. Thank you so much for watching, and have a lovely weekend. I shall talk to you again very soon. Take care. Bye.